So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dalles Chamber Community Affairs. Today, our guest is Emily Harris. She is the founder and I would say the mover and shaker and the runner of Uplift Local, as it takes that in order to do something new and make it happen. So today she is our guest. But before we turn it over to her, we're going to go around the room and introduce who you are, your organization that you represent, and if you promise to keep it short, a little bit about what's going on. So that way our speaker also is familiar with who's in this room and what we represent, because we may be a small group, but we are connected and we have resources and we share this information. Also, just so you know, this is being recorded because then we take it and we trim up all the front and the back, and then we put it on our YouTube so that people can watch it later for those topics, and we link it in our e-blasts that go out on Mondays and Wednesdays. So with that, I'm going to start off with the famous Scott McKay.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I am a community liaison for Circles of Care, which is an initiative of Age Plus, a statewide nonprofit. Circles of Care, we're always looking for volunteers, but that's the nature of any nonprofit these days. The second thing is I'm involved with the Dementia Friendly Wasco County Partnership, looking at trying to reduce the stigma and providing supports for those living with dementia. And the third thing I just thought of being, nowadays everyone's talking about the possible cuts that are happening. And I am on the chair of the Senior Advisory Council for the CAPCO Area Agency on Aging. And the federal funds for the Nutritional Service Incentive Program, we call NSIP, it goes to the meal sites. And I think it's one of the three big pots of money that goes to the meal sites. It's been canceled and may possibly forever. And so that'd be another hit to our meal program in the Gorge, particularly the Mills, Mid-Columbia Meals on Wheels program. So that hopefully that will be reinstituted in the future, so that funding will continue to go to the mill site. So, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Dave Peters.
Dave Peters, Housing, Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. Sort of the current past housing resource center manager. We do all things housing for home ownership. We do foreclosure counseling, home buyer classes. We do down payment programs. We've recently given out over $1 million in down payment money from the state of Oregon, and we're going to be applying for more money soon. So, and we also do nonprofit low-income housing. So we have about over 450 apartments in the Gorge, and new ones under construction. Rand Road, I think, is going to be breaking ground in the next few weeks. In the river, it's 130 apartments. A little bit further down the road, probably a year later, to start would be one out where DeHart's Market is, if you're familiar with the Dalles, on Chenoweth Loop or Chenoweth, I forget which one. But anyway, out there, they're going to put in approximately 80 apartments. So things are happening here. Thanks.
Thank you. Corliss?
Morning, everyone. Corliss Marsh, Habitat for Humanity, the library, senior center, college foundation. Two things today. There's a dance Friday night at the senior center from 6 o'clock, 6 to 8. The live DJ, Stan Farger, is going to be the DJ. So come on out, even if you don't dance like me, just come on out, have a good time. And the second thing has to do with the cuts. The library is going to be affected with the cuts. We're not going to have a courier system, which means like if you want to borrow a book and we don't have it, but maybe Lapine has it, we won't get it. We can't get it because the courier won't be running. So last year we had 90,000 transactions that happened with the courier system. And so that's all going to be cut with the new cut. So I guess we all have to kind of like write our Republican Congressman, Cliff Benz, and tell him stop the cuts, because it's affecting all of us. That's it.
Thank you. Bill Brady?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we sure can.
Thanks. Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner. The MAGA cuts are coming in lots of directions. And, but it is springtime, so let's focus on what is perennial, and that is baseball. Little League season starts on Saturday, opening event at 9 o'clock. It's beautiful to see all the kids, parents, coaches, teams, and America begins with baseball. Okay.
Thanks. Jennifer Zimmerly.
Good morning, everybody. Jennifer Zimmerly, Adventist Health Columbia Gorge. And yeah, beautiful week. It was great. We just had a visit from the Adventist Health CEO from our corporate office in Roseville. And one of the reasons he was up here is, of course, talking about the ever-changing government programs and how that may be affecting us in the future, and more is unknown than known. And other than that, we're focused on Cherry Festival at the end of the month. So that's super exciting.
Thank you, Jen, for being here. Darcy?
Darcy Long. I'm running for Columbia Gorge Community College Board. I am also with Empower Financial, and I help people with their personal finances and business finances. And of course, with all the cuts going on and things, I can help people with that. And my favorite thing to do is cut employee payroll taxes for employers. So give me a call.
Thank you so much. With that, yes, I'm going to add in there really quick. I'll put a link in the chat. I also put a link to know so everybody knows where that spring dance is this weekend. It is also First Friday on downtown for the Dalles this weekend. Also, Cherry Festival is coming around the corner. It is the 25th through the 27th. It is a rather little bit of a big deal as far as putting it together and hosting it and all of that. So if you are looking for a spot to volunteer, you know of someone who just needs to sponsor, we don't have enough sponsors yet, or they just want to be in the parade and do that. But we also still have room for vendors in our open air market. And then there's also a community fair, so which are nonprofits. And those types of organizations get to be there all day long. It is covered by a sponsorship from Underwriter Ford, so nobody has to pay to be there on that Saturday event. And it gives some exposure to our nonprofits and organizations. Some use it as a fundraiser, some of it just as a messaging. So if you know of that, we still have room in the community fair also. So there you go. I'll put the link for the big event and all the latest things of all the things you can enter on that. But with that, Emily, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you just give us the story of Uplift Local.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate, and I guess you do this regularly to get up at 7 in the morning and have a chat, which I really appreciate. And having some other, fellow bright and bushy-tailed, but whatever, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed people in the morning. Can everybody hear me okay, first of all, because I am in a cafe and there's a little music in the background, but yes, okay. I want to share my screen because I do have a few slides I'd like to show you. So, share this, and also need to share my audio. So, that. Well, I'm not totally sure how to do that. Zoom control looks different than, oh, share computer sound. That should help. Okay, so can you see my screen? It says Uplift Local on it.
Yes.
Great. I can't, but that's okay. Okay, with that. All right, we've gone too far. So, yeah, I want to tell you the story of Uplift Local and the program that we're launching in Gorge, in 4 counties in Gorge: Wasco, Hood River, Klickitat, and Skamania. It's called Documenters, and I'll explain what Uplift Local is, what Documenters is, how they work together, and how this is part of strengthening the news and information fabric of the Gorge communities. Uplift Local is a nonprofit newsroom. Nonprofit newsrooms have started, I mean, there's been nonprofit news forever, like PBS and NPR, but nonprofit newsrooms started, like local independent newsrooms started maybe 15-ish years ago, as local news was beginning to contract and the economic model, particularly of local newspapers, was not working out. So that kind of model has been going on for a while. Uplift Local is new. It's designed specifically to strengthen the information ties within communities. So we add to the information that's available, and we work in partnership with existing local news and information organizations. Talk a little bit more in a minute about the partners we have to start with here in Gorge. But how Uplift Local got started was basically a gripe session, if I'll be honest. I've been a journalist for a long time, and I was talking with a couple other journalists here in Oregon who are friends who we had worked together on an extensive collaboration when we all worked at different news organizations. We were looking into the rules around what happens when kids in high school play sports and they get concussions, what happens to them afterwards and how that's working out, because there have been laws passed in that recently. So we worked on that big investigation together. And one day we were basically just talking about the problems local news has and griping, but then we realized we didn't really know what the situation was in Oregon and Southern Washington. Like, we knew generally big picture, but we didn't know who was actually getting impacted in our part of the country by the loss of local news. So we decided to try to learn what we could. And over a couple of years, we got a grant from the Oregon Community Foundation to support this research. And over a couple of years, we talked to, one way or another, more than 3,500 people in 4 languages, English, Spanish, Russian, and Ukrainian. And we learned some things that surprised us. And we built a news organization based on what we learned. One of the big things that surprised us was that we had thought that people would probably say they really wanted like more investigative news, more like long form stories and stuff like that. But people really wanted to know more, basically what was going on in the communities at a lot of different levels, but they just wanted to know, what was going on. So we built a newsroom that responded to that. And the Documenters program is at the backbone of what we're putting together here. Just brief, you can see our beautiful faces. There's me, Lee, and John. We're the 3 journalists who started this, and then Michelle, Mike, and Omri, different people with expertise in journalism research, who helped us put the structure of the newsroom together. There's our website is upliftlocal.news, and you can read their bios on the website. We also are a nonprofit, so we're run by a board. I'm not sure if you can get this Zoom thing out of the way. Should see that, but we run by a board, so we have 3 board members right now. 2 of them live in the Gorge. Patty grew up in Hood River and lives in Cascade Locks. Charles lives in the Parkdale, Hood River area. We are looking for more board members, so if you're interested in that, that's one way to get involved potentially. Sorry, just trying to get back to my dance thing. All right. We are often asked why Uplift Local came to the Gorge and why we are piloting this Documenters program in the Gorge. And it goes directly back to the research that we did over those couple of years, talking to the 3,600 people. What we learned was there are 3 big groups of people that have been impacted the most in Oregon and Southern Washington by either the loss of local news or the lack of local news. So one big one is rural communities. You'll know that by living here. You know that newspapers have been closing here and all over the country. Local newspapers, long time mainstay of getting the word out, of letting people know what's going on, of covering government. Another community that has been severely impacted have been cultural affinity communities that are very diverse within, but have maybe never been that well served by mainstream media, so for example, the Latino community. And then the third group that was heavily impacted was people who like to be informed and involved in local issues, but would prefer to get that information in language other than English. And all three of those communities exist and coexist here in the Gorge. So instead of trying to do, one thing, we decided to do everything all at once. And that's why we're piloting our programs in the Gorge. Specifically here as well, when we did focus groups, particularly among the English language speaking community in the Gorge, we really heard a deep desire for more knowledge about what local government is doing. People just wanted to know. These are some quotes from focus groups that we did in the Gorge, and that made us think, okay, well, of all these local newsrooms, these nonprofit newsrooms that have been springing up around the country, experimenting with different ways to fill the gap, has anybody built a newsroom that is specifically focused on local government and putting that at the center? And we found this program called Documenters. Documenters are people who are trained to go to public meetings and who are paid to do so by Uplift Local. They take notes, and then those notes are published for anyone to see and read and to reuse their Creative Commons license. And then Uplift also takes those notes and turns them into, show you some examples of that later, turns it into an email newsletter and so forth. Documenters was started in Chicago in 2016. It became a network starting a couple of years later when Detroit picked it up and decided to create a similar program. And this was the kind of program we were looking for based on what we'd heard people were interested in. Having public meeting information about what's going on, be the backbone of community-driven journalism. So we train people. I've held, like last night, I had a training up at the community college in Dalles, had a training the night before in the river at the library. We've had trainings this last week in Goldendale and White Salmon and Stevenson. I have an online training this afternoon and another one April 12th on Saturday. So we teach people some of the people who've been at these trainings have been to lots of public meetings. Some people have been, parts of bodies who run public meetings. Some of them are very experienced. Other people who come to these trainings never been to a public meeting in their lives. So there's a big range of experience, but a lot of interest that I've found in this community. So we train people to go to these meetings as a member of a community who is knowledgeable about community needs, community problems, community opportunities, to monitor what's going on, to pay attention. I mean, one thing that's so true in many of the communities in the Gorge and other rural communities is, and well, in cities too, but more prominent often in rural communities, there's a lot of public boards and commissions that are people who are serving on them are volunteers, and some of them have told me they don't get a lot of eyes on the work that they're doing. So it's kind of a combination of like accountability, transparency, and appreciation and spreading the word. So just putting people's eyes on what government is doing in different ways. We partner with local news organizations to strengthen that overall availability of relevant information and decisions that are being made that affect people's lives. So our the four partners we're starting with here are the Goldendale Sentinel, the Columbia Gorge News, Radio Tiara, and the Hood River Latino Network. And our overall goal is to just equip communities with more information that's relevant to their lives, to help them be better informed and make better decisions about what's going on. And to participate. It's Documenters is not a journalism program per se. It's very journalism adjacent. And one thing that we're trying to do long term is create a way to grow local journalists here, because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but in kind of the model that's been part of the American journalism landscape for many years new journalists will come out of school, usually getting an undergraduate degree or maybe a master's in journalism. They'll go often to a rural area, to a small town for a couple of years. They will practice their skills there. They'll make mistakes. They'll learn the community, and then they'll leave because they aren't from there and they want a different opportunity. So one thing we are looking at long term is how to develop a pipeline of journalists who are homegrown, who are connected to a community, and create the opportunities for them to stay in this community and work as journalists. But documenters themselves are not journalists, it's journalism adjacent. It's also a civic engagement program. So documenters will become, as we've seen in other cities where they have this program, in other areas where they have this program, they become sources of information themselves. So if they hear their neighbor talking about what they thought they heard the planning commission did, they were at the planning commission meeting, they can say, oh yeah, I know, I was there at that meeting, let me tell you what happened. So trying to just infuse more accurate, knowledgeable, trusted sources of information throughout the community, and again, focused on local government. There's this little movie that I want to share, but I'm afraid it won't play very well, so I might send the link to it, and maybe you can share it around later. Phil, yeah, I see you raise your hand.
Thank you, Emily. This is great. Once again, I'm County Commission. We do have visitors. We have one consistent visitor who comes up, and of course there's Corliss Marsh, who's always around. Two things. One is there's a rule in government that if you go to meetings and sit in the back of the room, someday they will ask you to sit in the front of the room.
I have not warned the documenters about that, but it's true that this program in some areas has led people to want to run for office. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
It's the right way to go because you're warmed up to the issues before you take office. Yeah, I think it's respectful to the organization to start by attending meetings before you run for office. And in terms of, I know for county government, we have what we call County College. It's put in by the Association of Oregon Counties. It's and at that, not just county commissioners attend that, but that type of training program would be great for people so they see the rules that the county commissioners are operating under while they're in the meetings. Last thing I'll say is county government's not the tip of the iceberg. I say it's 50% above water and 50% below water. So I can see where you're saying a person would want to go back and have conversations to see the rest, or have after a second year through a cycle of budgets and such, a person understands, okay, this is why this is happening now.
That's a great tip. Thank you. I will look into that county college, because that could be a really great source of partnership and information. And yeah, this will be a learning curve. As for the program itself, there hasn't been one that there are some of these programs are run in rural areas, but there hasn't been one that's trying to cover so much territory all at once. So it's going to be a learning curve both for us and for people who are going to public meetings for the first time to get their bearings. So that's yeah, we'll I think you're right. The second budget cycle, the meeting notes will probably be a lot more accurate. But thank you. Here's just a sense of the number of communities that have put this program into place. We're the 26th community to do this, and you can see where they are around the country and where we will be right there. Oh, it's on the wrong place. That's on the California-Oregon border. Sorry, the arrow is supposed to go a little further up. The network is part of what is important about this program, both the local network that's developed and the national network. Because as we work in partnership with the national network, there are trainings available to people who become documenters here that are available to anyone who's in the network nationally. We can see what other communities are doing and get ideas from there. So there's a value in that network piece. And I'll just see, I'm going to switch windows for a second. Can you see this screen, City Bureau, Documenters Network, People Powered News and Information?
Yep.
Can folks see that? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the Documenters website. And as you can see in here, the Columbia Gorge has its own subdomain there. And if you, couple things that happens here. One is this is just the site where people who are documenters go to see what meetings are available as assignments, turn their assignments in, go to workshops. But two things that people might be interested in here that who aren't documenters is one, we're gathering a list here of public meetings that happen that we're pulling together from all sorts of disparate websites. So if you're interested in generally what's happening in the area, you can come here and see, okay, Skamania County, oh, there's North Bonneville Hood River, rather than having to dig up all sorts of different websites. And what we're drawing on to do that is a spreadsheet that I put together that tried to find every single commission, board, fire agency, council that meets across the 4 counties. I came up with over 200 bodies that meet at least, once a year, like the appeals board for property taxes, as many of you probably know, only meets after the property tax assessments come out. But then, city council might meet once a week, or the school board might meet, much more often. So, but 200 plus bodies. So those, not all of them will probably wind up here, but many of them will. And then the other thing is, both here and then on the Uplift Local website, we'll have the notes just published so that anybody can go read about the meeting in a friendly and comprehensive way. So that's so one key piece of the Documenters program is this website that has these open government tools. The trainings that I've been talking about and other trainings in the future, which will include like more in-depth note-taking practices, just getting together locally, either virtually or in a physical space, to meet each other, to talk about what we're learning, to share ideas on what meetings to cover, what are important meetings of those 200 for communities. So those kind of trainings and gatherings are always free. Assignments are always paid. And in the future, there may be different kinds of assignments beyond taking notes at a meeting. For example, in other communities, sometimes they do live tweeting of an event. If it's an important meeting that a lot of people are really interested in. We're not planning to start with that. But some other things down the pipeline is, for example, writing sort of an explainer about what an agency actually does, and then pulling those together as a resource, easy to go to resource on the Uplift Local website. Interviews, one-on-one interviews with folks who are active in local government. Again, just to connect people with the people who are, making these decisions and in positions of responsibility and authority. There's also a model hoping to be able to do maybe experiment with later this year in direct partnership with our news partners, using the Documenters as a reporting core to amplify what any one journalist can do here. We did an analysis of the number of the percentage of journalists in the Gorge area, how that's changed over the past, I think it was 15 years. I'm not totally sure. I'd have to double check that. But anyway, in this set time period, the number of the percentage of population in the Gorge, in those 4 Gorge counties, grew by 17%. But the percentage of journalists covering the counties dropped by 71%. So, there's a real void there. So kind of assignment, the special assignment that I'm talking about would be, for example, if a journalist at the Columbia Gorge News wanted to do a story about how the public transportation system around the area is working, that's one person, so they can have data and they can have anecdotes. But if we modeled a project after, for example, what the Documenters in Chicago did, they made special assignments where a documenter would be offered an assignment to go ride a certain bus for a certain time on a certain day and collect information, everybody collecting the same type of information from these different bus routes about the quality of the bus, the quality of the service, comments from the rider. And that just brings together so much more information to enrich that kind of reporting than one journalist can do. So that's a down the line from the special assignment that we'll be looking at. And then the fourth part of the documentary program is this building a community of people who are civically engaged. Phil, you mentioned somebody who always comes to the Wasco County Commissioners meeting. I met somebody in Goldendale who always goes to the Goldendale City Council meetings. She takes notes and she has no idea what to do with them. She's like, I gotta share this information, but where? So she's like, really, like, there's people out there who are already that kind of engaged, and this is to build that network and that community bigger, and just establish those ties more strongly. So that's the kind of 4 key elements of the Documenters program. Another way to think about it, a little more snappy, is it's a website, it's a connected community, and it's a civic side hustle. Documenters are paid $17 an hour, which includes the meeting time, plus an hour to prep and an hour to clean up your notes and stuff like that. So it's gig work. No one's gonna be launching, supporting a family full-time on this at all. But it is also designed to be, potentially a path to other opportunities. So who are the documenters? They are regular people. Shyla from Wasco County took our training already. Amy, she's the person in Goldendale who is already going to public meetings and taking notes. And there's maybe see a little bit about them on the screen. Shyla raises chickens and is really interested in public accountability. Amy ran a business for 20 years. She's a timber property owner, and she is involved in the arts up in Goldendale. So that's sort of the recap. Documenters trains and pays community people to monitor local government meetings, take notes, shared throughout the community. I'll get into exactly how those are shared in just a minute. We're working in the 4 counties, in this Gorge region, Skamania, Klickitat, and Wasco. It's a Documenters program, is a space for civic learning and community, and their work is going to form the backbone of the news products in English and Spanish that Uplift Local will be creating. And other communities have found that the Documenters notes, all gathered in one place, has become a really great resource, not just for partner news organizations, but also for researchers or people who are interested in specific issues or something like that. Phil, I think I saw you raise your hand again. Did you have a question? I can't actually see you.
Yeah, thank you. First, how much success have you had with recruiting Spanish language reporters?
So we have some bilingual people who come to the Documenters training, but it's, all the public meetings are held in English, so you can't only speak Spanish and really work effectively as a documenter. We are creating a Spanish language news service based on a lot of this work. And so we're actually hiring a bilingual journalist right now. And I don't know how many applications we have yet, but it's half a dozen. We just put the job application up on Monday. So that will be our first hire. If anybody knows anybody who'd be interested, I can also share that job application to share around after this meeting. And then just as far as interest overall, I think by the end of the last session that I have scheduled on the 12th, right now, about 60 people will have gone through the training, which I'm happy with. That's double what I was aiming for. And then, there'll be people who decide this is not for them, or they don't have time, or things like that. So that's the thing. And I will also say, in our focus groups in the Gorge with Spanish speakers, one of the key things they also were interested in was just basic information, like is the bus running when it's snowing outside, or like, am I invited to this Santa Claus event if the flyer is only in English? They just really wanted also more basic information. So some of that will be woven into the news service that we're starting. Okay, so there's a little summary, documenters.org, and then Columbia Gorge documenters.org, where you can do a lot of different things. And places. And Phil, did you raise your hand again?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. A question on your funding and business model, given it's hard for journalism everywhere. How does the organization expect to be sustainable?
That is a really, really important question. And since we're a nonprofit, it is the basic components of any nonprofit. We don't have any federal grants, but it's grants from foundations, it's donations, and we'll be starting a membership program. And we may have events. So that's standard like nonprofit kind of funding. So, and that's, that's going to be critical, right? So if we can't fundraise and get this supported, then it'll be tricky. But so far we've had really great success. And actually last December, when we were doing a fundraising campaign before we launched, just on the idea, we raised $70,000 in the last couple of weeks of December. So we're hopeful that will continue. And did you have another question?
Yep, I'm sorry to keep
That's okay. I
here.
love questions. So keep them coming.
What is your policy on people using AI listening things like, for example, Lisa here is using Otter. I often use another product called Granola.
Granola, I have not heard of Granola. So the thing that documenters bring that so a couple answers to this. One is we're experimenting to see with like how AI can be helpful, because it's a lot to take in. But the thing that documenters bring that AI cannot, and that the agency minutes of a meeting cannot bring, is the eyes and ears of somebody who lives in the community, and the weight of what's important to figure out. So AI can listen in on everything and write everything down and summarize what it thinks are the high points, based on how people talk about it or different things like that. But it doesn't have the background necessarily of why this issue is important, or how people, outside of that meeting room feel about it. And then on the other end of things, some agencies do a really great job with their meeting notes, their minutes. But sometimes it'll just say there was a discussion without any sort of sense of what the discussion was about or had what kinds of points of view. And so the lens of the documenters is something that is unique, and it's written for other people in the community. So experimenting with AI to see how that can be helpful, but at this point, not feeling like it can really replace this eyes and ears of members of the community on the decisions and discussions of public officials. Our timeline. So actually, before I get to that, I'm going to show you what kind of the products we're talking about. So for example, this is the first set of notes that we have. We're just in test run mode right now. So as documenters are getting trained, just offering them different kinds of assignments to see how things go. So this was a documenter who went to a different kind of meeting. It was a meeting to gather public input on the Klickitat County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Some of you probably know they haven't updated it fully since 1979. So the notes that you can go to, like on the Uplift Local.news website or on documenters.org, you'll see it says what the meeting was. It says who documented it. There's a little summary. These are the summary of a documenter, as you see here, is going to be different than the summary of an Otter or Granola or another AI. And then also they bring questions that they had after the meeting. They're not necessarily trying to answer the questions. Like I said, they are not journalists, but these are the questions that a regular citizen had, regular resident, local member of the local community had after attending this meeting. And then the notes with links for more information. So a little summary of what happened. This was a meeting where the planning department was introducing the concept of the land use comprehensive plan they had different areas of concern, areas of interest like economic development and environment. And then people went around to different tables, wrote down ideas they had that they wanted problems or they wanted addressed or opportunities that they saw. And then people went around again with little, red and green stickers and voted on stuff. So her notes linked to the announcement of these meetings. There are more coming up. Talked about how many people were there. Gave a sense of the meeting. They only brought 48 cookies to that meeting, and there was over 100 people there. So maybe they'll take more the next time. Who exactly was, from the county? What officials were exactly? Staff members were involved in this, and then a summary of the presentation with a link to it. And then, like I said, this is a different kind of meeting, but so she just went through and wrote down what the most and least popular ideas were that popped out of this meeting, and then summarized the closing remarks. And then we always have at the bottom of the notes a way to contact us if there's some discrepancy or some mistake, if somebody else was at that meeting and wanted to help us correct the record. So that's one piece that's really important for this thickening the information fabric. And then here's an example. This is just a draft. This will not probably look exactly like this, but we'll be sending out an email newsletter probably once a week, just summarizing, talking about the meetings that documentaries covered, showing some other opportunities to be involved, that kind of thing. And then in Spanish, we plan to do the similar thing, but on a phone text messaging system, because that's what we heard from members of the Spanish speaking community would be more useful for them. We may do both in both languages, still up in the air there. Bill, question.
Thank you. Got lots of questions today.
I love it.
Two questions. One, quasi-public meetings, for example, meetings of political parties or activist groups, are those on the list? And second, for all meetings, what will be the access of these documenters to executive session? Legally, are they considered journalists?
Great question. No, legally they are not considered journalists, and I mean, there's no definition of journalist in either Washington or Oregon state law, as far as I'm aware. But they do not expect to go into executive session, so no on that. And the quasi-public meetings, it's something I'm thinking about. It's come up a lot. I think right now we are going to stick with public meetings and see how that goes. But one of the important things here is to figure out what are the right meetings that need to be covered. And for that, trying to get input from a large range of people, our news partners for one, our documenters for another, members of the community writ large as a third. So yeah, that's come up a couple of times. Both, like, somebody has asked about political parties specifically. Somebody's asked about nonprofits that have big influence. Somebody else asked about not a public meeting where there's a discussion or a decision, but there's just a lot of information shared. So it's a little bit of an experiment to go to that Klickitat County input session. So the answer to that question is thinking about it, and I'd love thoughts from other people. Dave, I think you raised your hand also.
Yeah, question. This sounds like, I know somebody that might be very interested in this way over in like Roanoke, Virginia. Would it be the website if she was going to find out more about maybe starting a new chapter, if that's what we call it? Is that Uplift Local, Get Paid, Go to Public Meetings website that I see on those right now?
I would be happy to direct her, but so you could share my email with her. But if she were interested in starting one in Virginia, I would say the first stop is the network website, documenters.org. So main site, documenters.org. But I'd also be happy to put her in touch with the people at documenters.org that bring on new programs. So my email is very simple. It's Emily at upliftlocal.news, and I'm on the, invite from today's event. So feel free to share that. That would be great. That'd be really great.
Thank you.
Okay, so just our timeline. So like I said, this week I've done training over in the Dalles. I got a virtual one this afternoon. The last virtual session is April 12th. In the future, we will be having regular trainings, exactly when, probably every 6 weeks or 2 months to just onboard new documenters. And then, like I said, we'll be having other trainings and gatherings, both virtually and in person, of people who are involved in the documenters community here. Right now, we are doing test runs of documenting meetings, putting meeting notes up. We should be starting publishing the email newsletter at the end of this month, and the email and the phone text newsletter. And then in the future, hope to expand, like I've talked about, to special assignments, local guides to local government, whatever people in the community think we could, as a group of documenters, contribute to the community. There may be new ways that people here come up with that have not been tried other places too. So we're open to that. And I will also send, that maybe can be distributed later, the link to the sign up site if you are, if you're interested in becoming a documenter or learning more about it by going through the training, or know somebody who might. Again, there's one this afternoon, 2 to 4, and then another one, the last one for right now, will be the 12th of April, Saturday morning online. And that is everything I had to share. Thank you very much for listening to that. That was a lot to take in. And I really appreciate all the questions. Are there more? I can also drop those links in the chat. I just realized. So let me do that.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, because then we have that and we can share it with anybody who requests.
Awesome.
I
Okay, so
just have to, I just have to comment, we're missing our former newsman extraordinaire, Dan Spots, today. He's started his retirement, and that may be not a coincidence that he's out of town today. I'm sure he'd be very, very supportive of all of this.
Oh, wow. Well, when he comes back in town, I would love to meet him. So here's our job posting. Here's our pulling up links. Here is our sign up link for trainings.
Okay.
And here's my email. Can't spell my own name. There you go. I think that's everything I said I'd send. Oh, I know, one more. I will send the link to this little movie about
Yeah.
documenters. Let me just grab that and put it in as well.
I apologize. The lawn people decided to come today and blow out the parking lot. So that's what you're hearing in the background. Okay, well, Emily is working on giving us that link to the video. Is there any other questions? See any? So, all right, perfect. There's the document. I'm grabbing it really quick and adding it to my notes. We got it. And I don't see any other questions, so we're going to give the gift of time, which I know is all valuable. But first off, Emily, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and just educating us as to how this organization works, the purpose of it, and how it can benefit our communities all down the gorge. And so with that, thank you. for doing that. And thank you all for being here. This is a group that does get the word and spread it. And so we appreciate your here and commitment. We would love to increase this attendance. So if you know of anybody, tell them, hey, this is the easiest meeting you'll do ever. Probably the most informative. We have different guests every week, do this all year round. So as you can imagine, if you come, you will meet at least 52 different speakers.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity. I really am grateful, and I look forward to hopefully meeting some of you in person in the next,
And if you have any questions, just reach out. Emily will see what we can do to connect you or find a solution for you. But with that, don't forget to support your communities. All of them have things going on now that spring is here. All the activities have stepped up and increased. And I know that you can do that by dancing a little at the senior center tomorrow night, or going downtown and supporting local for our first Friday. And then there's all different kinds of things, including ball games all over. So it's that time of year. Spring has sprung. So thank you all, guys, and enjoy your weekend and take care.